Hispanic.
Okay.
Just don't do any swears like willies and vaginas.
Damn. It's too late for that.
Damn those willy vaginas.
Too late for that. I hit start my stream. Haha. Welcome to Willies and Vaginas.
Welcome to willies and vaginas.
Alright, so we're in season 2 now, aren't we? Question mark?
We are well into season 2.
That's what I thought.
Well, let's so whilst there's no one here, I was thinking, I wonder if we need to sort of jazz up how we're doing this, because doing each individual episode as an episode would be nigh impossible, because it would take us like 100 and something episodes, 100 something weeks. So it would take us a couple of years just to get through Buffy. So I don't know if we want to maybe jazz it up, because there's other shows that we've been talking about. So I wonder if we do like seasons of shows rather.
Okay.
And then we could like dissect the season of the show. So like season 2, there's plenty of to talk about. We could do a couple of hours on that.
Yeah.
And if we do like 2 parts on the season, and then I've started Bones last night.
Oh, nice! How you liking that?
So, well, yeah, let's get into it. I did not click with episode 1 at all.
I understand that. It's like I said,
not even slightly.
Episode 1 of any show is always really, really rough.
Yeah.
Except Buffy. Buffy does a really good episode 1.
Buffy does do it very well.
It's very
It's
surprising.
wild, think about it.
Yeah. Well, especially like I remember, like I've said this before in our first episode, like watching that first episode of Buffy, I was like, did I miss something? It seems like there's stuff going on here that I should like maybe know about, but like I don't, or else I wouldn't be so fucking confused.
What's I mean, we've said this a few times, but what's wild about the first episode of Buffy is it's written that if you've watched the movie, you know what's happening. And
Yeah.
If you haven't watched the movie, you know what's happening. It's and you don't lose anything for not having watched the movie. Because I didn't watch the movie till like season 3 or 4. Like, it was way, way, way further down the line before I ever watched the movie. Mostly because I didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
IMDb obviously wasn't like a thing in '99. Maybe it was, but I don't remember it being a thing. I don't think you're live, by the way.
I wasn't. I had to hit go live again.
There you go.
There we
Fabulous.
go. So stupid.
Um,
Rebel Studio pisses me off so
stupid.
bad because it's so goofy.
So-
like, just pisses me off. Anyway,
This is secret Spike. I found him.
my not so secret Spike.
So if you look at my stream, I got through. Okay, so Bones. Let me click on it. I got just over halfway through the pilot, and no, you know when you watch something when you're kind
Hey.
of tired.
Shush. Yes.
It's not me barking, by the way. And because I just wasn't engaged, and I was halfway through, I was like, do you know what? I would rather sleep and find out what happens at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
That's not great.
Yeah.
So far, and because of how young David Boreanaz looks, I couldn't help but feel, and this is clearly like right near the end of Angel and all that, or maybe I don't know if it overlaps. Maybe it does.
I don't think so. I think Angel ended, and then he was freed up to do something else, and then he decided to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I see Angel. But what's interesting is you've said this before, and the chap who was the best man at my wedding, he has also said he sees him as Seeley.
Yeah.
So other people, I'm kind of alone and going, yeah, it's Angel. Everyone else is like, nah, bruv, he's Seeley. What are you talking about? Tom doesn't talk like that. He's a posh show like me, even though we're both like posh broke people. So we went to a good school, which we kind of ruined, and then proceeded to do nothing with our lives. Go skating and all that sort of shit. But anyways,
Hell yeah. That's the way to be.
The point is that I am going to commit to finish watching the first season of Bones, because poor Georgina's getting quite upset at me. I have this habit of So like we've got High Potential, which has got what's her name from Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Nice. You're birdie.
And yeah, shut up, bird. And we're halfway through that. And I feel like I'm done. I feel like I've watched enough to know I know what they're doing, and I don't need to see anymore. Which I wonder if it says something more about me, because I've said this a few times. Like most shows need to stop at like season 3 or so. Just yeah. You've done what you need to do. Thank you. I'm finished. Move on. I don't know what that says about me. Anyways,
I think too. Like I think it's just something where like you think about like stories and stuff like that. Like there's a reason they end with "and they all lived happily ever after." Like even fairy tales, because it's just so like you don't need all these. Like a lot of the times you're like, I don't need all these details. I don't really care. Like it takes a certain tone and a certain interest to keep like something going, to keep you caring. Like it's yeah. I get that, because I'm one of those people where after a certain season I'll stop caring. I think I watched maybe up to season 3 or 4 of Once Upon a Time, and then I was like, fuck this, and I stopped.
There's a few shows that I can think of where I've done that, like Supernatural. I get to like, I mean, I've tried to rewatch Supernatural a few times, and I always get to like season 3, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm done. But I've heard, and I know this is the case for other shows, that like specifically Supernatural, it goes through like a big dip around season 3 or 4, and then it gets like insanely good later on. So I've heard it massively improves, but I must have watched like season 1 of Supernatural a handful of times, because I keep going back to go, I know I like it, but I only like it to like a certain point.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. But I'm sure that says more about me than anything else.
I don't know. Yeah. For me, like, I know I have like attention deficit disorders, but I also didn't grow up with like television. So for me, we had movies. So we had a VHS player and you popped it in and stuff like that. And so like, yeah, I don't like, for me, it's really hard to keep my interest going in something for as long as Buffy goes for, or even Angel. But both of them kind of managed to do that for me.
So, I mean, before we start going into like season 2, anyone that is watching, I think we're going to try and adjust the format a bit and start like being a bit more expansive. So maybe discussing the entire season of like season 2 of Buffy, or at least the first half of the season 2, and then the first of season 3 and so on, rather than trying to do episode by episode, because I'm sure you would agree, there's a lot of episodes. In fact, I think we're gonna cover 4 today, where there's not a huge amount to discuss in them. It's kind of like, it doesn't really either progress the story of Buffy or do much character development.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's not a huge amount. I mean, we could sit there and really dissect it, but it would be a bit boring, quite honestly. And I think that we've got quite similar taste in movies and shows. I know you lean more to horror, and I lean more to sort of action comedy. But I think there's enough crossover where we could easily go, okay, this is what I felt about Bone season 1. This is what I felt about Angel season 1, and so on.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm
down.
So, last time we covered When She Was Bad, and today we were going to discuss some assembly required, School Hard, Inca Mummy Girl, and Reptile Boy. So yeah, 4 episodes. Hey, do you know what? We should start at the beginning. That's generally a good place to start, right?
Yeah.
So, some assembly required. I'm gonna just go out on it. It might be the worst episode of the season, which is such a shame, because it's the second episode. Because When She Was Bad is a solid episode.
Yeah.
Solid start to the season, and then there's like quite a major dip. Basically, there's people that you've never encountered before.
Yeah.
but are played as if you've known them forever, because obviously schools are big, and it's just some random guy in school, and they are taking bodies of dead beautiful girls and assembling a Supergirl. So it's like it's in those horrible I don't know if it's really a thing nowadays, but certainly was when we were growing up, where you'd see it's almost like a horror trope where they cut the eyes from a magazine, or they or the mouth or whatever, and then they assemble the perfect girl. What's that terrible '80s movie? That's a similar premise, isn't it?
Yeah, Frankenhooker. I know that's one of them.
Yeah,
where they kind of and it's kind of very like Frankenhooker inspired, to be honest, this episode, because like literally like he brings his brother back from the dead, and that's why he's trying to assemble this quote unquote perfect girl for him, because his brother's like, you promised me I wouldn't be alone.
You don't really find that out too much later on, so it's kind of played arguably cleverly as like what's doing this, and you find out it's actually just some teenage boys being pretty nasty, quite honestly. And generally, as a rule of thumb, especially when it comes to like Buffy and Angel World, and the same for X-Files and Supernatural, when you've got these worlds where you've got like supernatural beings, vampires, werewolves, Inca Mummy Girls, etc. The thing that's most terrifying to me is when it's like a normal human that is bad.
Yeah.
Because that I find that far more sinister, because obviously we all know vampires aren't real. Or are they?
It's actually what we're here to discuss today.
Yeah, let's discuss it. So I always find when it involves humans, it's that more scary. But for whatever reason, this one just really didn't hit for me. And maybe it's like, it's kind of I tell you what it was. Half the time my eyes were rolling. I was just like, oh, for fuck's sake, really?
Yeah.
It's just so goofy.
It really is.
It's too goofy, and the other problem is it's not played goofy. It's played seriously. It just doesn't. For me, it just doesn't land. It just doesn't land. The swoosh. There you go. So I was hoping it can. So I don't know. I don't know if I'd go as low as a 4. But it probably is around there, like a 4.5, and I would happily skip it. I don't think I'd ever rewatch it seriously again.
Yeah, it's not like it's not that it's like horrible. It's just like it really is like it's such a sad premise too, that like
it is
like the brother died in an accident, and Cordelia knew the brother, and then Cordy's reaction to him is also so like, it's so Cordelia, but at the same time it's like pretty heartbreaking. You're like, wow, that's kind of fucked up, dude. But like the whole thing is just kind of like it's this thing where it's like, wow, that's kind of sad, but also it's really fucked up right now. Like what? So like it's this like, it's kind of like two different flavors that they tried to put together. That should never be together. Kind of like if you put like caramel and paprika together, you're like, that sounds horrible. That's kind of like
that's a really good way of putting it.
The vibe of this one is like, it just doesn't go together. It's not something well done, unfortunately.
Which so this is a good example of what I would argue a lot of modern movies have this issue. And I've had this discussion with like plenty of people IRL where I'll say something like, I think that the new Marvel's film is shit, and they'll go, what are you talking about? It's not shit, it's really, really good. And the problem is that you get people who can't distinguish sort of good writing versus say good effects, good cinematography, sort of like a well shot and well executed film or show doesn't necessarily make it good. And that's especially common nowadays, where you've got these amazing visual effects artists, and some films have these like beautiful sceneries, and like from a technical point of view it's a good film, it should be good, maybe I've never watched it, but I imagine Captain Marvel probably falls into this, the Brie Larson one, where you get these people going, no, it's a good film, but they're going, and technically they're probably right. It's technically very well done, but from a writing and from like the way it like hits, it just doesn't work. And that's kind of how this one is, because technically there's nothing wrong with the episode.
Yeah.
It just doesn't land for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an odd one.
It's definitely, like, I think, too, like, for me, like, if you're dealing with a serious subject matter, like, I don't mind levity, and I don't mind cracking jokes. Like, that's kind of how I operate in real life. Like, if something is real serious, I'm gonna crack jokes. But, like, this doesn't really do that. It just kind of plays it weird. Like you said, like, it's the writing. Like, there's just something about how everyone is reacting to this horrible situation that, like, it's just goofy, and you're like, you wouldn't, like, it's not believable.
It's not like but it's not like a goofy, like, slapstick funny. So you could almost disconnect yourself from the seriousness of what's happening. It's just like, it's almost, I don't even know if it's like, it's a lack of seriousness.
Yeah.
It's just, it's really odd, and the whole time I was watching, I just I didn't want to skip. I did want to see to the end, but I just didn't enjoy it.
It was definitely, like, it's definitely, like, for me, it's like, you wouldn't be reacting like this in this situation. Like, that's how I felt about it. And so I think that's kind of the off-puttingness of it. And I think, too, like, at this point, we're in season 2, so, like, probably still trying to figure out a little bit these characters and who they are, and each actor's trying to figure out how this person would react in this situation. And especially, like, Cordelia is still pretty, like, she doesn't get as much screen time as the other guys, so, like, she's probably, Charisma's probably had a little bit less time to develop who Cordy is internally, and so her reactions externally are a little goofy, I think, especially in this episode. And so it's one of those things where I think we're still trying to figure things out, and, like, if the writers are writing it, you have to do what the writers do, unless you're season 6 and you're like, no, my character would not do it this way, they would do it this way. And I know, like, for James Marsters, he was like, there was a scene where they were trying to get me to be concerned about something going on with Xander, and he said, nope, don't care. Spike wouldn't care about that.
Spike wouldn't care about Xander.
Yeah. And so, like, that's the kind of thing you kind of need in this situation, but because it's still so early in the runtime of Buffy, you don't get that. So.
Yeah. I do wonder if, like, if they had a shorter runtime, if they had half an hour to do it, I wonder if it might have been done a bit better, just to tighten it up, because there's a lot of, like, the reveal of the brother being dead, and that it's what, halfway through the episode?
Yeah, something like that.
And it just doesn't feel entirely needed. The one thing I would say I did quite like was when they were running out of body parts, and they're like, okay, we need to turn to
murder.
The twist at the end is that they're going to kill someone alive. Kill someone alive? Wow, that's some English there, logic. Holy cow. Rather than digging up and desecrating a grave, they're going to actually kill a girl to get the body parts, which, you know, fundamentally the premise is flawed, because, you know, why would you have, like, a mismatched girl when you could have just, like, a straight up Cordelia, straight up,
like, if you're gonna kill Cordelia, why not just have Cordelia? Yeah, literally, like,
Cordelia. It just doesn't. Maybe that's part of the problem, is, like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, Frankenstein's monster doesn't need a Frankenstein's wife necessarily. Like, you know, just having Cordelia would be enough.
That's literally, like, and it's crazy because he's not mishmashed. Like,
he's not mishmashed. No.
So like, if he's not mishmashed, why do you need someone who is?
Why is and then girl mishmash?
And Cordelia is a fox anyway, so why do you need to take just her head? Like, come on now. Like, if you're having Cordy, just have Cordy. Get out of here.
But exactly right. Yeah. So, and if you're gonna go kill someone, you might as well just, well, like you said, just go for a Cordy and be done with it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's a lot of plot holes, and our brains can't sort of comprehend the goofiness of it all.
I think that's probably the other thing, because yeah, like, it doesn't make any sense to me to be like for me too, I'm like, these girls, I'd be offended if I was one of these girls and they're like, oh, we took your feet because you had really nice feet, but fuck the rest of your body. Like, I'm haunting your ass, dude.
Like, yeah, they put in a man together and they go, all right, Logic, we've taken your pinky. That's the highlight of you. Oh, cheers, mate. That's my highlight. This is my fucking pinky. Cheers.
That's literally like, you're just asking to get haunted, bro. Like, especially in Sunnydale. What the fuck? Yeah.
Again, it probably is a 5. It's probably not quite a 4. Because again, technically, it's well done and so forth. It's well shot, well, produced and so forth. The premise itself, straight away from the beginning, is just not great. I'm not a big Frankenstein's monster fan anyway, so maybe I'm not the target audience.
Yeah, well, and I love Frankenstein's monster, but I think, like, I really think they took some of the things about Frankenstein's monster that technically make it Frankenstein's monster, and they tried to use those things, but it's like, that's not what made Frankenstein's monster interesting. Like, the thing that made Frankenstein's monster interesting is, it's this internal life that he has, where he's like, I was created. He doesn't really have, like, relation to the parts where his body came, like, the parts of him that came from elsewhere. He's like, I don't have relation to that stuff. Like, this is just, I'm a being, you created me, what's my purpose? You don't have a purpose for me? What the fuck is wrong with you? Why'd you create me then? And so, like, it's this question about, like, what does it mean to be a creator, and what does it mean to be God, and what does it mean to be a creation? And that was what made Frankenstein's monster so interesting, but they just took the everything else from it and left that.
A few parts of it, yeah. So, like, if you were to rewrite it, I think the way I'd go about it is I'd probably drop the whole brother angle, because that again doesn't make a great deal of sense. And you could have just like a lechy loser incel boy, who can't get laid, no girls are interested in him, and he starts building the perfect girl, and you could have the perfect girl almost having each like element of the girl that they built out of. So like one could be narcissistic, for example. So the Frankenstein's monster would have an element of narcissism, and you could have like this really interesting confused monster where it's like I don't know what I am, I don't and I don't know who I am, because I'm 4 or 5 different people.
Yeah.
And that would have been far more interesting.
I agree.
And you could have had, say, one being, say, a gymnast or something like that, and therefore you would have had an interesting fight with Buffy and the Frankenstein's monster, because then you've got the fact that the girls are living undead and is acrobatic in some sort of fashion, and that would have made a far more interesting story than drop the brother, have a story, a much more character driven, like, and I mean, they would be asking a lot of the actress, because you're going to almost be going that you are 4 people in one, and you kind of got to try and convey that. I think that would have been really interesting with the right actress as her.
Yeah, that definitely would have been so much better than Some Assembly Required. Like, that definitely would have been so much more interesting. Or even if you had, like I get the, like, not that I'm all for killing people, but I think it would have been more interesting if they were targeting girls specifically, and it came out they were killing girls. Because, like, they get to the point where they're like, well, we need a head for this body. And the one guy's
they
like,
get ahead, but they lose it, and
yeah, and he's like, the one guy's like, it has to be fresh, so we're gonna have to kill someone. And so, like, that's kind of like the crux of the younger brother is like, I can't do that. Like, I can't kill someone. And so that's kind of like what flips the episode around, and what gets Buffy in and how they figure this out is because he's so reluctant to kill someone, whereas the other guy's like, I'm kidnapping Cordy and I'm killing her today. Yeah, like, let's just go. And so, like, yeah, like, it would have been more interesting if they had been killing girls, and then they're like, and their graves are being robbed. It's crazy. So like, yeah, it just, the way they did it is so, it's such, like, honestly, lazy writing. Because here we are, just two, like, I don't know, just two.
I don't know if it's lazy.
people.
I think it's almost misplaced. Like, it was kind of like, oh, look, would you do this for your brother? Like, no, I wouldn't go around killing girls for my brother. I'm sorry. I love my brother, but there's no chance I'd be doing that. So
Yeah.
you know, it's just kind of, I don't know if it's lazy. It's kind of misplaced. It's probably the way I put it.
Well,
but anyways, let's move.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just think it's lazy because it's like, here we are, we're just spitballing ideas, and we came up with two different versions of this episode that's so much more interesting, versus they kind of were like, Frankenstein's monster, put it together and go. Like,
Yeah, it does make you wonder when, you have these writers' rooms, these writers, did someone sit there and suggest what we said, and maybe they went, oh no, having like two incel boys being killers is too much, maybe, especially in the 90s, that would have been sort of unheard of. I'm sure it'd be now it'd be like, yeah, two white boys incels, well, of course, obviously, blah, blah, blah. But, maybe they just poo-pooed it because there's too much.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, and it could be like, it could have been too, like, you never know what's said in a writer's room, so it could have been that they could have very well kicked around the ideas we just kicked around and decided we don't have the budget for that, or we just don't have the time to focus on something like that.
We don't have the complexity of writing to come up with something more deep or something. I don't know. It's bizarre because I do sometimes wonder this. Like when you watch a movie or something, you go, well, why did you write it like that? And you could have just done ABC, and it would have been much better and much simpler. But sometimes maybe they did try ABC and it didn't work. I have no idea.
Yeah, just strange to me.
Very strange. So, yeah, probably a 5, maybe even lower. It's not unwatchable, but I probably would skip it coming around if I have to rewatch it anytime soon.
Pretty skippable.
Pretty skippable. So, probably the best of the 3. Definitely the best of the 3. So it's 4 episodes we're going to talk about.
School hard.
School hard.
My boy shows up. He's here. I just love the way he enters town too. Just him like being typical Spike. Just rolls right into the welcome to Sunnydale sign.
The sign down.
Kicks his door open. He lights a cigarette. It's so great. I'm like, it's so Spike. Like, so excited.
What I like about it as well is they start to like develop it. Clearly someone has sort of sat there and thought about, look, if you're a vampire, you can't just sit in your crypt in the dark, especially in modern days, and they do sort of, when they do the flashback episodes, they talk about how like Liam or Angel stowed away on a ship, or all these things, and someone's clearly started to think about like this world building. And I love that the car's got like the blacked out windows except for these little ice, slits that you can look through.
Yeah.
It's just little touches like that where you start going, yeah, someone started to build this world out, and I really enjoy little touches like that.
Oh yeah.
I'm a sucker for detail, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important because, like, it's one of those things that, like, it makes or breaks your stuff, is the little details. Like, did you think about this? Where did this come from? How did they do this? And just, like, Spike is really one of those, like, you get a lot of answers about vampires from Spike. Like, I just watched the clip where he's got this giant tarp over himself and he's running into Giles' house in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And so you're like, that's so funny to me. And, like, and he's just like, shut the damn door! Pull the curtains, and you're like, oh my gosh. But like, yeah.
Again, little world building things where it's like, oh, what would you do if you're a vampire? Yeah, like would a tarp be enough for you to do this? And actually, like a good example as well is in now this is maybe taken to a silly degree, but in Blade, maybe 1, they all have like loads of sunscreen on. And then they have like biker helmets and biker jackets, so in theory the sun's not touching them. And this is, in like the LA sun, they're going around with sunscreen and biker jackets. But I like it. I like things like that where you sort of go, oh, you know, if you're a vampire, how are you going to get about?
Yeah.
You ain't getting on you ain't getting on the bus. You're kind of screwed if it goes wrong. So you are stowing away underneath, you know, the bowels of a ship or something.
Yeah, and even like Mr. Trick, he puts on like that long glove to reach out and grab the pizza guy, and he's like, "Food's here," and like he's talking about the pizza guy, not the pizza. And so like just like stuff like that is just so much fun. And Spike brings a lot of that. Like, so Spike rolls into town and he's like, I'll take care of your Slayer problem. And Dru's with him, and Dru is just a fucking blast. I love Dru. Having Dru and Spike around is so much fun. Just chaos gremlin couple. Like,
and as you said in the past, they chew the scenery, and they really do. And watching those two together reminds me of, it's probably why season 2 and 3, I know they're less involved, if at all, but those two together are phenomenal.
Yeah,
absolutely, just a powerhouse duo. I actually can't think of a duo that works as well as those two together.
Yeah,
and in fact, we are going to jump a little ahead into this, but when Angelus shows up again, the trio of them, and they do flashbacks, I think that even in Angel and that, where you know, Juliet Landau, is it, and his Marsters show up as, you know, Spike and DRUSILLA, and even like when you do those throwbacks to the 1700s, whenever it is, they're brilliant then, even though they're meant to be sort of period actors at that point.
Yeah.
It's just it's almost a shame that I can't rewatch it completely with fresh eyes, because I kind of know what's coming, but even so, it's still really, really good. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, it's so good. I wish I could see it with fresh eyes again.
Yeah.
It's that good. It's that good.
I would have to say I'm with you on that, because, like, just, I remember, like, Spike pulls in, and it's so fucking punk rock when he like, the way he shows up, and then, like, Spike himself is just punk rock. Like, he's just so punk rock that, like, I absolutely adore it. And then Dru is so strange and bizarre, and she has her own vibe, and the two of them vibe together so well. It's great. It's so good. Like, the pair of them just running around Sunnydale is
wrecking havoc.
It's amazing.
And what's so good about it as well is, and I know we discussed this last episode, but when the anointed one, the little kid, within, was it 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever, Spike kills the little shit. He just puts him in a cage and drags him into the sun. And, you know, you've had this kid built up for about 6 episodes by this point.
Yeah.
Maybe even more, and within a handful of minutes, Spike just wipes him off and is like, cool, let's move on. Let's carry on with the chaos. And they're just, it cannot be understated how brilliant they are together.
Yeah. And School Hard is such a fun episode, because you get Joyce sticking up for Buffy.
So they reference that, so I'm in season 3 at the moment, and there was a bit where, I think it might be right at the end of season 2 actually, where Joyce, I remember now. Spike goes to to their house because of Angel. They want to set it up to, like, trap Angelus, and Joyce is like, where do I recognize you from? And he's like, oh, get away from my daughter.
He's like, you hit me with an axe once.
So, I mean, ultimately what this episode is a build-up of Spike more so than Dru, because Dru at this point is still sick.
Yeah.
So she's not she's definitely a force for chaos, but she's definitely more the background. She's definitely not on the front fighting lines, as it were. And Spike shows up and is instantly like, right, I'm gonna kill a Slayer. And that's pretty much what the build up of the episode is. And there's a parent teacher day evening, I guess, whatever you want to call it, and Spike and the boys rock up, and a fight ensues. It's nice to see Joyce getting into the action.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is because they, if I remember correctly, the principal says, "Oh, it's PCP."
Yeah.
The I find that difficult to believe. Like, if I was Joyce or if I was a character in the world, I would find like a silly thing like that difficult to accept. And the fact is, Joyce should know something's up, especially that like Buffy's like crawling around the vents and jumps down in front of her, and it's like, well, surely by this point Joyce should know. And in later episodes, she's still sort of oblivious to Buffy's powers, shall we say?
Yeah.
And the world that she inhabits. So I don't know. That's maybe one minor quibble, but it's kind of tried to explain away with one silly line, like, "Oh yeah, it's PCP. I've seen that before." It's like, oh, okay.
Well, and I think the two things that I find really interesting about it are, at this point, Buffy has tried to tell Joyce once about being a Slayer, and Joyce just could not accept it. And so I think it says something that like Joyce is so, and like, of course we get to the episode where Spike shows up, and then like she has to explain that she's the Slayer, even though Spike brilliantly is like, I'll go along with whatever you say, Buffy. So like, she's like, "Oh, we're in a band together," and he's like, "Oh yeah, she's great. I'm the singer. Yep, we're in a band for sure." Yeah, so like that is really frustrating to me, and I think it's very frustrating to me because I am not someone who, like, whatever the truth is, that's what I want to know. Like, I want to know the truth, whatever it is, and it doesn't matter how impossible it seems. If it's the truth, it's the fucking truth, and, like, I'm not gonna just ignore that. Whereas, obviously, Joyce is not that type of a person. And I think, like, you have the principal. The other thing that's interesting is the principal is, like, talking to the chief of police, and clearly he knows that it was really vampires. But he's supposed to keep it hush-hush, and you get that feeling, and he says something about the mayor. So this is the first mention of Mayor Wilkins.
I wanted to mention that. What's really interesting, because the big bad for season 3 is, in fact, the mayor. Which, if you, this is big spoilers, but I'm sure most of us listening have watched all the way through. But the mayor is like becomes a big, horrible hellmouth worm thing that tries to eat the graduation people, party, whatever. And I thought that was really interesting. It's just like one throwaway line. It's like, should we mention this to the mayor or something like that?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow, like they are setting this up.
Well, and I think he says something, like, it really is a good setup, because, like, you do think it's, like, if you're not paying attention, you miss it, and it's such...
And it's so irrelevant. It's like, okay, well, who does he report to? Probably the mayor for the, I guess that kind of makes sense, or would you report to the school board? I don't quite know how it works in America, but it's such a throwaway line. You go, oh well, I guess he has to report to someone, doesn't he?
Yeah, which you report to the school board, but also in his case, like, because it's the town is clearly like corrupt, right? Like we get more of that as we get more into the mayor, but like the mayor put Snyder in his position for a reason. Like he says, because the cop says something to him, like, the mayor thought you could handle this, and he's like, I can't handle this. And so it's very clear that, like, Snyder was not an accident. He's not here on accident. Like, he was put in this position for a reason, and so it makes more sense that he has such a vendetta against Buffy, who is the Slayer, because he's working for someone who knows about vampires and like, the odds that person is a good person were clearly, like, something's off.
And obviously he does, because when he says something like, oh, should we tell the truth? No, we'll say it's PCP. Like, he knows the truth of vampires and you know, supernatural occurrences, so he's in on it. Is he in, like, at this point it's not revealed, does he know that Buffy is a vampire slayer? Does he even, you know such a thing exists, or they just trying to cover it up in their own sort of, like, you know, average person way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it kind of just solidifies, like, because Snyder hates Buffy so much. You're like, why? She's just like
weirdly so,
and it's weirdly so, and so I think this also kind of helps make it make sense a little bit more, because if he's being told by someone else, you need to put pressure on this kid, then obviously that's why he's doing that. So. And then they do eventually, because, like, when, at the end of this season, when Buffy vamooses to LA and comes back, and in the next season she comes back, like, to school and wants to, like, graduate, he's like...
Well, she gets kicked out of school, so eventually Snyder has enough to expel her permanently.
And then that's when Giles is like, I'll talk to the school board, I'll make your life hell. And same with Joyce. Joyce and Giles both, like, go full parental on Snyder, and they're like, you better let Buffy back in school, you little bitch. And so he does. So he doesn't have total control over what's going on, and clearly the school board does have some say, but obviously the mayor does as well. And so Snyder has to please, like, both parties somehow. Is kind of the feeling you get from that. So
yeah, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I really was impressed at how far ahead they started to set up the mayor, and you without, if you, like, go and rewatching and being more vigilant at trying to spot these sort of things. I don't think I've ever noticed that before.
Yeah.
So it was really, like, it was nice to see little things like that. I really liked, again, this is me nitpicking a tiny bit. I really liked how Spike and Angel knew each other, but it bothers me that, I don't know if you noticed that, I think Spike called him Angel, not Angelus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it should be Angelus.
Well, and I wonder if he did that because Angelus, like, when he becomes Angelus, he's clearly disgusted by just being called Angel. And so I think Spike did it on purpose to test him. Like, to see if because he's like, I heard you got your soul back or something, and he's like, no, that's bullshit, you know, it's just a lie I tell to keep people off my back.
Yeah, good point. I didn't consider it that. I thought, the way I looked at it, maybe it's my low intelligence way of looking at it, but I was like, no, he should think he's Angelus, but yeah, maybe he was trying to test him. Well, he was trying to test him. There's no maybe about it. He was trying to test him.
Yeah.
You know, he has, well, Angel has Xander in a headlock and goes to bite him, albeit incredibly slowly, and then a fight breaks out. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what it is. I'm gonna try and work this out as I keep watching. But whenever it's Spike, Angel, Drusilla, Darla, when it's that, like, core vampire group, it's just the best.
Yeah,
it's just the best.
Yep. They are, like, and it's because they're just like a force to be reckoned with. Like, later on we get you know, this vampire is so old his hands and feet are still cloven, you know, kind of a thing.
Yes.
But like, these guys are just so, like, they're like, who gives a fuck, dude, about any of that stuff? And they just, like, and I think that's what I like about them, because those older vampires are all about, like, hierarchy, and we're gonna do it this way, and here's all these rituals, whereas, like, Spike and Dru and Angelus are like, fuck those rituals, man, we're gonna do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
Fuck that hierarchy.
The only other thing that made me giggle was, I managed to find the frame, is, so, Joyce bops him on the head with the axe. Does he say something like "women"?
Yeah, he does.
And then he gets up and he runs to the window and he jumps out and he does this look. I've got it on the frame. He's got his arms out with his jacket all spread out. He does this, like, weird, like, little hop out the window. I have no idea why, but it really made me giggle. Such a silly little thing, but just like, I'm escaping. Jumps out the window. But again, like, if I'm going to nitpick at anything, he's on the run. He's clearly dazed and confused. Buffy should just grab a stake and just like run up behind him and go boop, and that's it. It's like game over. Now, obviously, I know story's got to happen, and things have got to develop. You can't just instantly kill Spike the first time he shows up, but
or ever,
or ever. Yeah, true. But there's a few times where you go, well, he should be dead there, or he should be dead there. If he's on the run now, he's taken a bop on the head. He's gone, oh fucking hell, I'm not going to fight anymore. He's going to run away. I'll just grab a stake and chase him down. He's clearly, in retreat mode. So
well, and to that, I think because Joyce is standing right there, so she's gonna be like, "Why the hell are you running after that guy?" Like, no, because she does like that is Joyce's response when Buffy does. She's like, "You can't be doing this," and she's like, "It's literally my job, Mom." Even after she knows she's the Slayer, she's like, "Can't you just have someone else do that?" And she's like, "No, I'm the fucking Slayer. What do you want from me? I have to do this. This is my job." And so, I think Joyce being there is what prevents her from doing that, because she's gotta worry about keeping Joyce in the dark.
I misspoke. He doesn't kill the Anointed One at the beginning of the episode. He does it right at the end. So when he gets back and or like the Anointed One and his crew are like, you done goofed up. That's when he kills him.
Yeah, because he's like, you don't fucking tell me what I did, bitch.
Yeah.
And puts him in a
For
cage.
whatever reason, I was convinced he did it right at the beginning as like a show of power, but there you go. I was clearly wrong about that.
Yeah, because when he pulls up, he offers. He's like, "Hey, I'll kill the Slayer for you," and the kid's like, "Good, you fucking better," basically. And then he gets back, and the kid's like, "You failed me," and he's like, "You know what? I didn't do shit. I'm throwing your ass in the fucking sun," and that's what he does.
Yeah.
He said, "Fuck you, I do what I want."
If it's based purely on the Dru and Spike bits, it's probably almost a 10 for me. But the overall episode, it's probably not a 10 episode. It's probably more like an 8.
Yeah.
Maybe a 9.
Yeah.
But it's just the scenes with Dru and Spike are so strong. It almost drags it all the way to the top.
Oh yeah.
Incredibly good episode. Absolutely worth a watch. And it's your first encounter of the best duo. I genuinely can't think of anyone as a duo that's better.
Yeah. No. It's so funny because like they really do like perfectly suit each other, which is like the strangest thing ever, but like she's so weird and he's so weird, and like she's more like a goth kind of a girl and he's a punk rocker, so he kind of like, he's like, I get it, that's cool, I'll dig it. And he's such a even like as a human, like as a vampire, he's such a like sweet spirit, honestly. Like it's crazy how like Spike clearly retains some of his humanness. Like, even when the judge comes and he's like, "You two reek of humanity and affection for one another," and he's like,
whilst they're snogging each other's faces off.
Yeah. Spike's like, "Well, yeah, don't be jealous about it," basically. But like, it's so funny because like they really do, like they're such good villains because they are so likable, and like you see that they like each other, and that's fun too. Like everything about them is just great. Very smartly written and acted.
Again, it goes back to what I was saying. The fact that they are so human, it adds to that impact. Again, a werewolf is a dumb animal that cannot think for itself. It acts on instinct.
Yeah.
I've got to go eat. Vampire to a degree. A human has to, in essence, be malicious. They have to act on malice, and that's what makes them more interesting. And that again, that's sort of maybe that's why it works so well with Angel as well, because Angelus is so devoid of human emotion. He's in fact, when the judge goes to burn him, he can't. Well, there's no humanity here, or whatever he says.
Yeah.
So Angelus is pretty much a POS. And those two are more human. And what's interesting, I mean, we don't know this yet, but Angel sired Drusilla. Like, he drove her mad, which is why she's as crazy as she is. And then Drusilla sired Spike, and Spike was like just like a bookworm, if I remember correctly. He's just like some sort of timid little.
He was a sensitive little poet boy. He was a mama's boy. He was a poet. Like the first thing he does, I think it's so interesting because the first thing he does as a vampire is he's like, well, I want to cure my mom and make her fucking eternal. And so that's what he does. And then the mom is obviously not his mom anymore. It's a vampire and is a fucking bitch, and he kills her. So, which is like, good for you, man. But like, it's so funny because like he really is like he's just very like a sensitive spirit, which cracks me up because he's so punk rock, and I love that. Like, the duality of Spike is just internally fascinating to me. Like, he's just such a fun character with such a good backstory, and just anyway, you were making a point.
What's also interesting as well is that I've known people like him. You know, I very much grew up in the punk scene in the UK, so you know, if I wasn't partially influenced by him, I certainly knew other people that were, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe not running around in leather jackets, but certainly, you know,
hopping out of windows, doing the Batman thing.
Yeah, doing the Batman jump. I don't know why that made me giggle so much. Yeah, I'd say like an 8 or a 9, but if you just take the scenes of those two, it's really up there as a nearly flawless episode.
Oh yeah, and it's for them to show up and it's their first appearance and they just knock it out of the park, dude. In every scene they're in, incredible. Like,
it just gets better through season 2.
Yeah, it's
the build up through season 2 with those two and Angelus.
Yeah,
just fantastic. I mean, I got to the end of season 2, and I was just like, "Fuck's sake!" It was so good. It was brilliant watching. Yeah, there's a few duds like some assembly required, and the next episode, which we'll talk about, Inca Mummy Girl. But you know, it's mostly, I would say the whole season's stronger than season 1 personally.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot down to like the story being developed and the characters growing and new characters arriving. So Inca Mummy Girl.
Oh Lord.
Xander heavy episode. It, for me, it's kind of got similar feels to The Pack.
Yeah.
Which is the episode where Xander gets infected by a hyena spirit.
As one does when they go to the zoo, you know?
As one does when they go to the zoo. And it's kind of got a similar premise. They go to the zoo in The Pack, they go to a museum in Inca Mummy Girl. Someone breaks a plate or something, like a seal, on a mummy exhibit, and that's when quirky shit starts to happen.
Yep. And Billy Black shows up.
Billy Black, I don't know who that
is.
It's
Jacob's dad from Twilight.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, sorry, I never seen the Twilights, so...
I just think it's so funny. Like, because he pops up and I'm like, is that Billy fucking Black? And then I googled it and I was like, yeah, it is. Because, like, at this time, like, everyone and their mom wanted to be on Buffy. Like, you know, like, it was a hot show, so, like, people wanted to have guest spots on it. And he wasn't, like... It's not like his career was so prolific. Like, I'm sure this was just, like, he wanted to get paid, blah, blah, blah. So he did this. But, like, I just think it's hilarious that he's here. And he's, like, some, like... Incan protector that has, like, his family has protected the mummy and the plate for generations now, and you're like, alright, that's kind of weird, but, like, I just love his random appearance.
Well, he dies too, the Inca Mummy Girl. I think he's second, or... he's pretty early on, he dies to her. Then the Inca Mummy Girl, who's, well, exactly what it sounds like, you know, an Aztec-y South American mega babe that has to steal people's life force, for a lack of a better word, and does this. Is going around Sunnydale, is murdering innocent people.
Yeah,
And
Which, like, it is kind of one of those things where, like, Buffy is so, like, it's so, like, yeah, people are getting murdered, we're just gonna keep moving forward, and you're like, man, those people are fucking dead, like...
No police involved, you know, there's about 4 people dead now.
Yeah.
And so the Inca Mummy Girl ends up at Buffy's house because there's, like, this whole student exchange program where Impata, is how you say it?
Impata, yeah.
Impata. So you got to do it with the American accent, otherwise it just doesn't sound right. Impata.
Impata.
And initially everyone thinks it's going to be a boy, which it actually is, but he gets murderized and ends up being this fox that Xander naturally falls head over heels for. What was quite sweet about it was that I think she genuinely liked Xander. So this is like pre Cordelia.
Yeah. I think that's probably the saddest part of the episode is that, like, they like each other and, like, you're like, they can't ever be together. And poor Xander, it's just Xander falling for another girl that is like
he's so into her as well.
Yeah.
And he never gets this. He never gets the kiss.
Yep.
Bless him. Well, he kind of does. He gets the right at the end at the bronze, but bless him. It's kind of like I said, it's similar to. It's kind of got similar beats to the Pack, also being sort of Xander heavy.
Yeah.
It's an. I don't know if they dwelled enough on the most interesting part of it, where the Inca Mummy Girl is doing what she needs to do to survive.
Yeah.
And it kind of should have had more of a moral question.
Yeah.
Of, is, you know, obviously it's not okay to go around killing people, but, you know, I guess it's a little bit like vampires, you know, you've got to survive somehow, so the morality should have been brought into it a bit more, sort of questioning of it. She was, you know, she was killed as a teenager, as a sacrifice. She never chose this life. She was thrust into it. So there's definitely like a deep well of morality to draw from, but they don't really do that.
I think like maybe if you did this episode later on, you'd be able to do more of that. Because you're right, like, it is such an interesting thing, like, what is the morality of this? Because she was sacrificed unwillingly to save all of her people. She does that. Now she's got a second chance at actually living, but it requires her to sacrifice other people. And so, you know, like, Buffy, like, levels with her for a moment and is like, I get you didn't choose this life, but you can't go around hurting people like this. Like, you can't just kill people. Like, that's not okay, dude. So...
And again, they do address it, like you said, with a line, but it's like a 20-second, 30-second scene, and then that's it. I feel like the complexity of the morality of it should have been addressed as a broader topic, as like maybe half the episode.
Yeah.
Because that for me was the more interesting thing, because arguably Impata, or the Inca Mummy Girl, is kind of innocent.
Yeah. I mean, she literally is not taking pleasure in killing people, you know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
She's not killing people unless she has to, and she only does it when she needs to, because she's reverting back to her mummy state. So it's kind of like she really isn't, like, it's really sad, because she's not a nefarious person, she's not trying to trick Xander, she's not trying to, like...
I think she genuinely likes Xander.
Yeah, like,
I do.
She's genuinely, like... into him. She's genuinely, like, friends with Buffy and Willow. Like, she wants to be here. And so she wants to be
another teenage girl.
It's so sad. Like, it really is, like, such a complex setup that they have that, like, I think Billy Black addresses it a little bit too when he talks to her, because he's basically, that's it, get back in your coffin, and she's like, no! and so he's like, you needed to do this, you have to do this, and she's like, no! And then that's when she, like, gives him the kiss of death and sucks his life force. Because he's like, get back in this coffin right now, young lady. And she's like, I will not. But, yeah, like, it's really not very, like, I feel like they definitely should have done some more of that. Because you can imagine how close her and Xander get. And, like, you don't need necessarily all these scenes with her and Xander to figure out how close they're getting. And so I think it would have been better to maybe cut some of that and then kind of condense the episode a little bit in the front end, and then on the back side of the episode you just kind of focus on this morality play of like what is the morality of this, like what, because she sacrificed her life for thousands of lives, so, and she's not like taking lives unnecessarily, she's only taking them when she needs to, and so it's like what is the morality of that, because like,
correct, yeah. I think that would have been really interesting to explore, which they don't really. It doesn't make it like a bad episode. So now, what's interesting about this one for me?
Pause.
Well, yeah, I've got Oz on screen at the moment. One, I didn't realize it's the first appearance of Oz, and Dingo's ate my baby. So for me, it's like love it for that.
Yeah.
And basically almost his becomes his sort of go-to line for a while is "Who is that girl?" But no. What was interesting to me was that I remember not enjoying this episode. So it's like one of those ones I was like, yeah, it's the one. It's quite a goofy one with the Inca thing, and actually I quite enjoyed it. Now it's not like a 8 or a 9. It's a pretty decent, monster of the day. I just wish they'd sort of, so they kind of do a bit of character development, but it's mostly actually lent into like her and Xander kind of falling for each other, and her trying to sort of fit into the school thing, rather than sort of like the morality of the complexity of the fact that she's arguably innocent and she just has to kill to survive. If it was like a real life situation, you could potentially set it up where, if there was an inmate on death row, you could have her being like the.
That's so true, though. Like, yeah, just give her all the death penalty, guys.
Yeah, you could potentially like make it into like a morally less ambiguous if you were like, well, okay, you can just kill all the pedophiles. There you go. It's all fixed or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like interesting that that would have been interesting to me, and they didn't really sort of go through that, as it were.
And I think, like you said, like if they had done more of that, like it's not a bad episode, like you said, 8 or 9, but like I think if they had done the morality stuff more and dug into that more, it could have been a 10 out of 10 episode.
No, I think it's a 7. I don't think it's quite an 8 or a 9. I think it's like a solid 7.
Yeah.
I just for me the highlight is Oz, but that's just because I'm a totally fanboy over Seth Green, and for me, arguably the best romance is Oz and Willow.
I have to agree.
They get together. I love it.
It's so sweet.
Sometimes he's such a brilliant boyfriend.
Yes.
If I was to be that way inclined, I would want that Oz boyfriend experience. And there's a bit later on where they're sat in Oz's van, and Willow wants him to kiss her, and he goes, "Look, I'm not gonna do it. I want to do it, but I'm not gonna do it because you're doing this for the wrong reason. I want to do this for the right reason." And that's such a brilliant attitude. I flipping love it. And he's so into Willow.
Yes.
He doesn't want to like let the situation, just because she's basically thrown herself at him. She's doing it for the wrong reason later on, obviously. And when he sees her, she's, if I remember correctly, she's dressed as an Eskimo.
Yeah, and he's so like, whoa, she's beautiful, and you're like, you can barely see her anything. Like you just see her face. That's it.
She's even holding a harpoon, if I remember.
Yeah, she is.
And it's so good.
It's
so wholesome.
That's the thing.
They're such a wholesome couple.
Oz is such an impossible person. Like, I'm sure someone like Oz exists in real life, but it seems so unlikely because you have all these other guys, especially even around Oz, who are like, "Oh, get yourself a babe, Oz," and Oz is like, I want to get myself a girlfriend. Yeah, like, he's like, I want someone to, like, actually, like, love and cherish, and then he does, and, like, Willow fucks it up, and it's just so sad. Like, I think, like, Willow not ending up with Oz is one of the biggest tragedies of the show, honestly. Because he's so good.
I never fully understood that sort of, like, twist to Tara. Look, I've got no issues with, you know, having a lesbian couple or whatever. Power to you. But it never made sense to me.
Yeah, especially
as I felt like they were, you know, Oz and Willow were arguably one of the best couples.
Yeah, well, and I think, too, like, the really upsetting thing is, like, she and Xander both kind of destroy their own relationships for each other. And so it's telegraphed really early on, like, they're childhood friends, they're gonna end up together, and they don't. And that, to me, is also, like, if you were going to not get back with Oz, then the natural thing would be to be with Xander, because that's been the setup for 3 fucking seasons. And then they just randomly throw in this other girl, and now she's a lesbian, and you're like, how does that make any fucking sense? Like, to me, it makes no sense to just 180 on that.
What's interesting, though, is this is pre that period of pandering, so I'm not convinced, based on the time frame and even, like, sort of Josh himself, I don't think it's a pandering thing.
Yeah, which is so, like, I don't understand why. Yeah, like, it didn't, like, to me it wasn't, like, a smooth enough transition, and, like, someone was like, Tara is probably one of the least problematic characters of all time, let alone on the show itself, and I was like, that's so true. Like, even the time they were like, she's a demon, they were like, yeah, we don't really believe that, like, how could she be a demon? It's her, like, she's just so sweet, and, like, you know, she is so sweet and so, like, just kind and loving and, like, a nurturing character, and so, like, I don't know, like, to me, like, I love...
Could Tara be considered a female Oz? Because she's very softly spoken, similar to him. Although, I don't know, no, I'm gonna disagree with myself.
Disagree with myself.
Oz does, he steps up a few times. You know, he really puts himself out there a few times.
Yeah, and
whereas
he
is a little wet, dare I say?
She's very mousy, which, like,
mousy, that's a better way of putting it.
I don't really mind that, or it just, to me, it's just never made sense. Like, if you wanted to have that character in there, cool, like, I'm all for it. If you wanted to have a lesbian character, whatever. It just doesn't make sense to me that it's Willow when we've telegraphed really early on that she's been into Xander for her whole fucking life. And then she ruins her relationship with Oz because of Xander, and then just doesn't end up with Xander. Like, that's so unfulfilling.
Yeah, it's really odd.
Very odd, yeah.
And there's also not Andrew, Jonathan. Jonathan shows up as well.
Which I love how far Jonathan is, like, how far beyond, like, before his villainhood, Jonathan is involved in stuff on accident. Like, all the time. He's all the time involved in stuff on accident. And so, like, I don't know, I just think that's hilarious. Like, cracks me up that he's not just like, here he is randomly, he's a big villain now. It's like he's kind of been in the series for a while.
He has. He's a background character. Like, it's kind of unusual how often he sort of shows up just as a, like, there's even a bit where he just gets, like, it zooms to him and he gets, like, thrown aside, and it's like, oh, that was Jonathan, wasn't it? Like,
yeah.
Oh. So bizarre, but yeah, he's around, and the Inca Mummy Girl goes to murderize him to get the life force, shall we say, because she doesn't want to kill Xander, and then Buffy comes and ruins it all for them.
Well, and it's so sad too, because, like, she can't kiss Xander, even though she really, really wants to, but, like, it's like a thing that she cannot control, where it's like, if my lips touch your lips, I'm gonna suck the life out of you.
QQ, mate. QQ. Yeah, I was really quite surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I just remember thinking it was such a goofy episode and really enjoyed it. So, again, is it because we've gone back through to watch a lot of these episodes with sort of more open eyes, looking for intricacies, or is it Was it always a good episode and I missed out?
Well, and I
I
think,
don't know.
yeah,
It's really bizarre.
I think too, like, as you get older, there are certain things that you're gonna appreciate more and stuff that you're like, I really could do without that. Like, I think the first time I watched Inca Mummy Girl, I was really into, like, oh, it's so sad that she'll never be with Xander and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's really what they were going for, right? But now that
Right.
I'm older, I'm like, yeah, let's talk about the morality of the Inca Mummy Girl. Like, why
Yeah,
can't we
maybe
do that
that's it,
more?
yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Galaxy Red. Appreciate you. Yeah, no. That like that's more interesting to me as 30-year-old Hannah versus 20-year-old Hannah who watched it for the
Yeah,
first time.
that does make sense. Anyways, yeah, like a 7 out of 10, somewhere around there. It's a good episode, but if it feels like a not as good The Pack, which, as we said before, The Pack is genuinely a brilliant episode.
Yeah.
So Reptile Boy, I'm
Woohoo.
interested to what you think of this one, because this is another one where I sort of remember not particularly enjoying it, but I really enjoyed it again.
Yeah, I love Cordelia heavy episodes because
Yes.
her dialogue is always so good. Like just the way she talks and then the way Charisma delivers the lines. I just love it so much. I think it's so much fun. So like having a Cordelia heavy episode like this early on in the show is really just like a treat. Like it's so nice. It's so fun. And Cordelia, like you brought up, like Cordelia is so Cordelia that like she's like, I can't believe I let you convince me to come here, except she was the one who convinced Buffy, and you're like, what the fuck, dude?
It's almost like the episode's almost set up for just that line, where it's like half the episode is Cordelia trying to convince Buffy to go to this. So basically, right at the beginning of the episode, there's these frat boys. I'm guessing from a university. Again, I don't really know American school systems, but
Yeah, there's
or
only
the
frats at
Europe.
like colleges and universities and stuff, and only some
Right.
of them. There's some that won't allow them because of all the stuff that goes on, and so
With frat boys, sure.
yeah,
So these fraternity boys are sat in a car, and Cordelia is trying to charm one of them, or is dating one of them, or in cahoots. I don't know quite know, but one of them takes a fancy to Buffy, and basically kind of tells Cordelia, you can come along if she can come along. And half the episode is kind of Cordelia trying to convince Buffy to go along to this frat party that they've been invited to.
it just
And
to
all is
me.
not as it seems.
Yeah, to me that just sounds like I would so be Buffy, like except I would never end up going because I'd be like that sounds like hell to me. Like I don't care that there's going to be
Oh.
cute boys. I don't care that we're going to get to drink. Just going to a frat party, like nix the whole like trying to get sacrificed to a demon and getting drugged part. Like even sans that, I'm like that just sounds like hell to me. Like I'm
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's kind of cleverly done is that she shows no interest, and then her and Angel have squabble, shall we say? And so, in order to sort of punish Angel, she decides to go to this frat party. So she eventually agrees.
it's one of those things where you're like, Angel, if you had just stuck your tongue in her mouth, she would have not been in danger.
Yeah. So Buffy makes an excuse because I think she has to do something, but then actually no, I think it's Willow that makes the excuse for
Yes, Willow
to
tells
Giles.
Giles like she's got something to
Yeah.
do. And then when stuff starts happening, or I forget what it is exactly, but when Willow finally
She
comes
has
out
to
with
do
it, she's
that.
like, ah.
I know where they actually are. So they're so halfway through you had this frat party, which is kind of like a typical frat party, drinks and that are involved. Initially, Buffy's refusing, and eventually she gives in and she has a drink, and then she gets spiked. No pun intended.
No, that
She
happens
gets spiked.
later. She gets
She gets spiked later on. And again, there's like typical pledging stuff going on. So this is where Xander's snooping around. I really like this because Xander is sort of showing his loyalty to Buffy. He, all the other Scooby Gang pretty much have a superpower of some sort. It's certainly not at this moment. Willow isn't a witch, but as we all know, she eventually becomes like a mega witch. A witch, not bitch.
Yeah.
Giles is obviously a watcher, so he's kind of the book smart. He's got something going on. Anya's got something going on. Tara's got something on. Basically, the only one who never ever has anything is Xander. He's like a full-fledged normie, full-fledged muggle, and it's really sweet. Now, is it because he's still crushing on her? I think it's more just because he loves her as a friend, maybe even as almost like a sister. Obviously, he lusts after her as well, obviously. But I think he more loves her as like a sister, as a, genuinely as a friend.
Yeah, and I think too, like, one of the interesting things that, like, it's funny that you brought up the Muggle thing, because I was about to bring up, he's kind of the Ron Weasley of the group, where Ron is not, like, particularly good at anything, like, he's not extremely smart, he's not really good, like, he doesn't have any spells he particularly masters, he's not an exceptionally good flyer, but he also is the first one to throw himself between danger and the group. Like, there are many scenes in the book where they're running from Death Eaters or running from something awful, and Ron puts himself at the back, even though he can outrun all of them. And it's because he's like, if I can do nothing else, I'll be a human shield. And that's kind of Xander. Xander is like, I will put myself in that danger. Like, it's just natural to him. Yeah, like, it's so very sweet. And Galaxy, that's kind of where Logic stands too, where Buffy's great, but he liked Angel a little bit more. They're both good though. And I love Angel too.
I'll sort of repeat myself a little bit, Galaxy, but we originally, myself and Hannah, we were discussing pre-Christmas. We were meant to start this around Christmas time, and it didn't happen for whatever reason. Well, one, I've got a little baby boy he's only 5 months old, so I've been quite busy, and Christmas happened and all that. But we were meant to do this long before the announcement of Buffy coming back and poor old Michelle Trachtenberg. I stated a few times that for me, Angel is the better of the two shows. It depends. Buffy's fantastic up to season 3. Maybe Buffy's better up to season 3. But then Angel definitely takes over for me.
He's also an Angel and Buffy shipper, whereas I'm a Spike and Buffy girl.
I had to look up the shipping like a year ago because people kept saying to me, I have no idea what shipping means. So I do know now, but it still doesn't make much sense to me. This is like 40-year-old man brain. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about shipping? But yeah, Angel and Buffy, big time. The true romance. That's like basically Angel and Buffy is like Romeo and Juliet on steroids.
Yeah. I also just want to point out that this freeze frame you've got going on, this poor pledge, like, already.
It's wonderful.
His fucking expression, like, I'm like, does he have something in his mouth? What is he doing that with his face for? Anyway.
So, Buffy ends up drugged. Xander gets kicked out. He ends up outside in his knickers.
Realizes Buffy and Cordelia don't make it out. And then I think that's how they kind of, like, sense that, okay, shit's actually happening. Because he does something. He's like, okay, we gotta call somebody. Like, I need backup for this, for sure. So.
Which is where Willow has to fess up to Giles and co. And sort of TLDR is that the girls have been sacrificed to some sort of snake monster, and all these frat boys are sort of getting wealthy and doing well out of their sacrificing to this creepy reptile god thing. Then there's also a line right at the end where they say like, oh, X amount of Nasdaq companies have all gone bust and CEOs have lost their lives or whatever, and it's the implication being that ex-members of this fraternity are suffering because of the the reptile guy being dead.
I find that so interesting too, because it's a little bit based in real conspiracy theories. Even though back then, like, it wasn't really like a conspiracy theory, but like you had like all these guys from like Skull and Bones and different fraternities here who went on to become really rich and politicians, and like it's just interesting that like they used this as a story.
I'm glad you mentioned Skull and Bones, because that's what I think it's meant to be. I think it's meant to be a supernatural twist on a fraternity like the Skull and Bones, where, look, if you get into there, and in the UK we've got Eton, like if you go to Eton, you're basically guaranteed a job in, you know, PwC or in the government or whatever it is. You're gonna do fine. Don't you worry. You went to Eton, so you're sorted. So it's you know, it's a pretty decent episode. I remember not thinking it's great, but I think Xander showing how much Xander is showing how much heart he has, and like just Cordelia just being hilarious.
Yep,
just brings it up for me. So it's probably like a 7.
Cordelia would really be like the last person you want to be in this situation with.
Exactly. I mean, and again, like we've said it a few times, but the line where she just goes, "Can't believe you made me come to this thing," it's just so typically Cordelia.
Yep.
And if you've never watched the show and this is like the first episode you've watched, you probably wouldn't continue to watch.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make a lot of sense. But you know, we're now, 16 episodes, 17 episodes deep, and know the characters a bit more, and a lot of it makes more sense. So really good 7, but it doesn't really do much for building of the world. It's just a decent monster of the week.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it is nice that it like showcases Xander's heart and everything, but it's not really like Xander would have done this 5 episodes ago or 10 episodes.
Yes.
Like, and you just kind of know that. So, like, it's not really a character development thing. It's just really showcasing his strength, which is his willingness to do despite not being capable of. And, like, he knows he's not capable of stopping these frat guys, which is why he calls for backup. But he still put himself in that situation anyway, because to him it was worth it. And so, like, just a very, very cool thing to see. And I totally agree with that, Galaxy Red. I am, like, maybe 10% excited about the reboot and then 90% skeptical. Like, I just... we've talked about...
very worried what they'll do with the new Buffy show, even if they're getting actors back for Hollywood has gone downhill so much that I can't trust them. It's almost word for word what I said last week. Where,
I was gonna say that.
It's you know, Hollywood is in such a piss poor stage that even if they said, oh, you know, Joss Whedon's coming back and you know, we've got these excellent writers and all that, I don't trust them at all. They you know, that bridge has been burnt a long time ago. Unfortunately, it's going to be almost certainly hyper woke, and not, I imagine, not very good, quite honestly, because they're going to be leaning into something that was, you know, popular back in the 2000s. It's even like applies things to like music. Like you can't bring back new metal that easily, you know.
Yeah.
I know Skid sort of came back not too long ago with Dad Vibes. That was a bit of a banger, and you know, that was it. It was kind of like one and done. You know, that era is very sadly dead, and I think that applies to the TV as well. Yeah. It's just done.
Yeah, and
getting back to it.
We've discussed too, like, because they're doing this through Hulu, which is owned by Disney. It's very much like this isn't going to be. There's no way, because they can't go 2 seconds without pushing their agenda, Disney. And like they always want to push all this woke shit, and it's like, just tell a good story. How about just tell a good story? That's what you're supposed to do. Well, you're literally storytellers. Just tell a good story.
What is interesting is, I'm sure everyone's been following the likes of Nerdrotic and Desperu and his YouTube commentary guys, but as we all know, Snow White has absolutely, you know, failed horrifically, and that could be a good thing, if Disney take a look at that and go, look, woke doesn't sell. And I mean, it's not even from what I've seen, I don't even think that that it is hyper woke. It's just so badly written.
Yep.
That they need to stop and take stock, and look at Kathleen Kennedy's meant to be going out. Jennifer Salke from Amazon's meant to be out. People are starting to make these moves to get rid of these higher ups that aren't making the company's money. They're not doing well, and if they do, it's off the back of an existing IP that is like well established, and new IPs just don't seem to be working. Now, what I suspect will happen with Buffy is I think they'll probably do 1 or 2 very good episodes.
Yeah.
I think maybe the first episode will trick us into being like, holy shit, Buffy's back, and then the next episode or the episode after whacked on the head with the bad writing and the woke nonsense. That's best case scenario in my opinion. If we're absolutely lucky, we'll get an episode out of it. The thing is, I just don't see the point. I think the story's been told.
I don't see the point of having a Buffy. Yeah, well, and I think too, like, if you're gonna tell another story about another Slayer, just tell a story about another Slayer. Like, Buffy can come in every once in a while, but I think to say it's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot, I think is just, I feel like that's just such a bad thing. Like, I'm like, you really need to be focusing on a different Slayer who has a different style than Buffy, who's a different person, who's got her own Watcher, and that shouldn't be Buffy.
Hell, set in New Zealand. Make her a total bookworm that doesn't have like the fighting and the quips that Buffy has. Make her struggle with that. She understands the monsters and that from like a book aspect, but she doesn't have like the fighting prowess, and she's got to like grow into that rather. And then she meets Buffy, and Buffy helps her grow and like that. Don't just tread the same path that's been trod. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And the fact is, fundamentally, that world, that story is told, it's done. It's similar to the best example I can think of is my favorite TV show of all time is X-Files. I adore X-Files, but X-Files should have ended season 7. It's an episode called Signs and Wonders where you find out what happened to Samantha, which is Fox Mulder's sister, and like most of the early episodes like is driving to what happened there. Was she abducted? Is she still alive? Etc. etc. And you find out what happens. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the end of it, because now Fox knows what's happened. There's still unresolved stuff from the aliens and that, and I think there's a noticeable decline in quality of episodes of X-Files, and then they fucking rebooted in season 10 and 11 and so on. Why? At that point, both Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny had buggered off, and you had 2 completely random fucking people in there. Why? It just didn't make any sense. Stop. Just fucking stop. The story's been told, and it's the same for Buffy. It can be. I'm sure there's other things I can't think of. The story's told. Stop.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like for me, it'd be so interesting to focus on a non-Slayer in the Slayer universe, right? Like one of the things that I feel is so unexplored is the werewolves in the universe, because like you have Oz goes off, and when he comes back, he's like, yeah, I learned all these tricks to help control my inner wolf, and so I'm like, show me that, like that's something I want to see. Like I want to see how does that work. What can you do with that? Like, take me places there where maybe you just have, like, a werewolf who's...
I was walking around Tibet trying to control his inner wolf. That's far more interesting to me than rebooting Buffy.
Yeah. Yep.
Hell, bring back James Marsters and fucking reboot Spike.
Yep.
Make some bullshit excuse to why he's aged.
Yep.
like when he got his soul, one of the side effects was that
He became actual human.
became more human, and he's started to age. Just make something up, and then like pick up with Spike, because then you could still have him going. You could have him going back to Buffy, because I mean he was in love with her.
Yeah, and he like, I feel like season 7 too doesn't, or season 7, the last season of Angel rather, excuse me, doesn't really do a great job of like explaining why Spike doesn't go back to Buffy. He just kind of meanders around with Angel, and is kind of
initially it's because he comes out of that pendant necklace thing, and he's tied to it initially, so that's why. Because for I can't remember how many episodes, he's a ghost. He's like walking around Wolfram and Hart as a ghost.
Yeah.
He's tied, like, elementally. I don't know what the correct term is, but he's tied to that object and he's stuck there. Obviously, that changes when he gets his like body back, and then. Because the end of Angel is basically them going to battle against a bunch of dragons and shit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they like a hellmouth opens basically.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so you could easily have a battle weary, like scarred up, messed up Spike, who is he's left LA. He's gone back to England. This is how I would do it. I would have Spike go back to England, right? And you find him in like a dingy London pub, like a horrible London pub, listening to the Sex Pistols, the UK Subs, Bad Manners, whatever. You know, he's there. He's listening to his punk music, and he gets like a calling of some sort to go back. But initially, the first half of that season, I'd have him like going around kind of the UK, so you're completely changing the scenery, you're completely changing who the primary cast member is. You can introduce new people, a new watcher or something like that. Maybe have a watcher go, oh, a Slayer died for whatever reason, then he needs to reach out to Buffy, and then you have him go back to LA, and then you 3 or 4 episodes in, you could have him. That's when the member berries kick in. Oh, here's Sarah Michelle Gellar. Here's Willow. Here's whomever. And I've got to go to. You can. I know you can make it almost like a game, a fetch quest. I've got to go to LA because I've got to meet up with Angel. Now we know that Boreanaz wants nothing to do with it, but you could. You could have him go to the hotel or to Wolfram and Hart. And you could just have like a stun double where Spike doesn't want to interact with him because, for whatever reason, make up a reason, and you could just have a spiky head fellow walking around Wolfram and Hart. I don't know why Angel would still be there, but
yeah,
again, you'd work out the kinks, and then you got all the member berries there. I remember Wolfram and Hart. I remember Sunnydale High. And you almost do like a fetch quest with him going around.
Yeah, and that would be so much more interesting to me too than like a new character. If you're gonna show me a new character, don't give them the same role. You know what I'm saying? Like, give them a different role, give them a different position, make them a different personality. I agree with all those things for sure. Or do like you just said. Like, I would be so. I can't imagine a single Buffy fan who wouldn't be into, let's see what Spike's been up to, and we'll follow him around, and we can just have a Spike show, like, which a fun fact that I just randomly, real quick, a fun fact is that scar on his eyebrow is actually real. James Marsters was mugged, and he had, like, that scar there, so they just made it part of Spike's makeup. So, anyway.
Oh, interesting, okay.
Yeah.
I had a friend who had that exact scar, and the reason he had it was he used to have like when we grew up, having eyebrow piercings was really common, especially like in the punk and rock scene.
Yeah.
And we went to see Pitch Shifter in London, we're in the mosh pit, and he came out, and he'd had that ring ripped out of his eyebrow in the mosh pit.
Holy cow.
So his face was just covered in blood, and then he has like a similar scar to that because he had the ring ripped out.
Crazy.
So, yeah.
That'd be so fucking painful.
Yeah, But I tell you why Spike also works. I know everyone's older. You can sort of explain it away, and you can probably do a lot with CGI and makeup. But you could also do exactly what I love in the Angel episodes. You could have these throwback episodes where you've got DRUSILLA. DRUSILLA can show up in, back in 1700. This is what happened. You can have Darla showing up. You can have Julie Benz. You can have Juliet Landau. You can have all these other people showing up for whatever reason.
Well, and I think
it's a supernatural world. You make up the fucking rules, basically. So.
Yeah, and they can change as they go because it's supernatural. And I think Juliet has said, like, I'd be down to come back as DRUSILLA. So that would be, like, stellar if you could, because
it'd be amazing.
The one thing that we kind of, like, we skirt around in the Buffy universe is that Spike will never kill DRUSILLA, even though they're not together, and vice versa. Like, those two would never kill each other, ever, for any reason, because they truly loved each other. So, like, that's just a non-thing for them, like, which I find so fascinating, that even though they don't love each other anymore in that way, they still have, like, that remaining love that, like, prevents them from hurting the other. Like, they would not want that at all. And so yeah. I think that would be a fun, interesting thing that you could totally bring back in a show about Spike, like. And James Marsters and Juliet Landau would be so down for it. And so, like, why not take that and run with it? Why not, like, dude, it's just mind-boggling that they're going with something completely different.
Yeah, I think the problem is that when you consider what the Hollywood lot are like, what ultimately happens is they have this surprise hit. Take X-Files, take Buffy, and they just milk it or try and repeat the same thing later on, and it just doesn't work when you, especially it's been 20 something years. It just doesn't make sense to
I think, too, the reason they would never do something like that, and the reason they would never focus solely on Buffy again, is these actors have aged, and Hollywood is so like, well, they're not young and hot anymore. Which, get the fuck out of here, they're still hot. But just because they're not young anymore, like, they would never do a Spike-focused show. They would never do a Buffy-focused show. Like, they just wouldn't do that. And so that's why you have, like, this new character coming in. Because, like you said, they have to, it's rinse and repeat. That's what they know how to do best. And so, like, just give us a new story in the same universe. It doesn't have to be focused on Buffy, like. But, yeah, I don't know.
They've had this problem with Star Wars as well, because arguably you could just say, look, let's not bother the Spike, and I mean you could still have them, but what you could do is you could have, like I said, just like a Slayer in New Zealand, and again you could do some sort of goofy ass fetch quest where she has to go into London and she bumps into Spike in a bar in London for some reason, like. Oh yeah, I left LA once. Me and Angel had a big fight. Angel went off and did his thing, and I came back to the home of punk.
Yeah,
like you can have him showing up, and have a completely new character. It can be written out. And look, I've just brought a picture of James Marsters. I don't think he looks that. I mean, he looks older. There's no question about that. But you slap on a bit of bleach blonde hair, I don't think it's that impossible for him to replace Spike.
I don't think so either. Like, I think it can be done, like, for sure. And I would not want a new Spike. Like, I would want James Marsters. Like, if they try to replace him, I'd be so fucking mad, dude.
They need to stop doing that.
Because
it's so tiresome.
Yeah, and he's so, like, to me, James Marsters is still as hot today as he was back then. Like, I think he's a very handsome fella. He's just got those insane cheekbones, dude. And then also just, like, he's just, he could do it. Like,
Is that how Juliet Landau looked? 2019, yeah. Wow, Juliet Landau has not aged.
Yeah, she is also, I'm like, and it's so stupid because Hollywood does this thing where they really do have cutoff ages, like, and so it's not even that they aren't hot anymore, because they totally are. They're all still gorgeous people. You know, from Sarah Michelle to James Marsters to Juliet, they're still gorgeous. Like, they are...
I think Juliet Landau might actually be a vampire.
She wasn't even playing, y'all. She just was.
What the hell? This is... well, allegedly this is 2020. 2019, I apologize. So that's 6 years ago. She has not aged a bit. Holy
They're
balls.
all like they're still dropped at, like, for me, I think they're all as hot as they were back then. They're just not young. But unfortunately, Hollywood doesn't hear things like that. They don't accept things like that. So they have to have the hot young people in there, and I'm like, you really don't. And especially they're so, like, they're hiring people basically based off of, like, Instagram followers, and I'm like, that's fucking stupid. Like, that's so dumb. Like, make stars like you used to. Don't borrow stars from other things. Like, come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, Sarah Michelle's doing well. I think she's looking good for her age.
Yeah.
I think Juliet Landau more so, but I think Sarah Michelle's doing really well. The other one thing I wanted to shout out was, I need to bring up her name. We've not spoken about this much, but I think earlier on, I don't think she's quite as heavily involved. But Buffy's, or Sarah Michelle's Gellar's stunt double.
Yeah.
I looked her up the other day. I know she's British. She came from London, I want to say. Stunt double. There you go. Sophia Crawford. She's brilliant. You know, she does a really good job. The only thing I'd point at, and this is common back in the old days, and even more so rewatching it, it's very obvious when they switch between the two. There's like
that's like
bad wig, and
Spike's stunt double is like twice his size, and it gets me every time when
it's really bad.
It's just so damn funny to me. Like,
I think in the earlier seasons, it's harder to spot because it's not quite as fight heavy, and they're quite clever with how they do the fights. And then, you know, I was watching an episode in season 3, like right at the beginning of season 3, and great episode.
Yes.
But it becomes quite fight heavy. It's like, wow, this is like really fight heavy, and I really started to notice like the stunt doubles.
Yeah, I think part of that is maybe just like kind of emboldened by the success of the previous seasons. They're like, okay, we can have more fight sequences, we have more budget, we can
more money,
we can spend the money on coordinators and things like that, because like people don't understand how much money it takes to make a good fight scene, but it takes a lot of money because you have to hire coordinators and safety professionals and just all kinds of stuff. So yeah, to have those fight scenes requires more budget, and I think once they got that, they were like, heck yeah, let's do it, get some flips and shit in there, dude.
He was also the Pink Power Ranger, apparently.
Oh, that's crazy. That makes sense though. That tracks.
But yes, yeah, she's great. I think you know, we've mostly spoken about like the big names, your Josses and your Sarah Michelles and so forth, but we haven't really spoken about like any filmographers or stunt doubles or anything like that, and I think they do deserve a shout out, you know.
For sure, especially like the amount of just like flips and shit that they do in this show is incredible. I'm like, good on them. It's incredible.
Like the cinematography and the filming is done so well. Like we have mentioned the sets. Well, I certainly have mentioned the sets. I think some of the set pieces are fantastic, especially like season 1, where I can't imagine they had a huge amount of money, but like the Marsters layer is brilliant. It's so good. And in season 2, when you have the when you go to like Angel's, I don't know what you call it.
His like castle, thing. Yeah,
whatever it is. Again, it's like a really cool set piece. Like it's like big and you feel like it's old, and Like, it's well lit, and it's all cleverly done.
I also feel like the library doesn't get enough credit, but the library itself is such a cool set piece because like the way it's built
Such an
up.
iconic space.
Yeah.
And there's little things like the cage. How many times do they use that cage?
Yeah.
Like they lock away Oz. They've locked away Xander.
It's so funny because
Buffy.
it's just like, a convenient cage in this library.
Yeah. Who hasn't been locked into that cage at some point?
No, for real. Because even Faith, I think, gets locked in at some point. Like, it's just everyone and their mom, basically, gets put in that cage at some point. Like, just cracks me up. And I think in the Dark Age, someone gets put in the fucking cage. Oh, so good. Shout out to the cage. The library cage is actually, like, the MVP.
The real MVP.
Yep, library cage.
So we're gonna pick up next week, some of the time again.
Yeah.
What are we thinking?
Do you want to do? Oh man, because season 2 is huge. It's huge.
Yeah, this is part of the problem with me saying, "Oh, we should review a season."
Yeah.
The problem is season 2, like, I mean, and even from now. Halloween mega episode, lie to me mega episode, Dark Age mega, What's My Line part 1 and 2 mega. Ed is the next time you kind of have a breather, and even that's still a good episode. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got at least 5 like straight up certified bangers in a row.
Yeah.
And then you have a little bit of breather, and then you're into surprise, innocence, phases. Like again, it's just like certified banger after. One after the other. Yeah.
And it's, yeah, that's the problem with having such a good show, is like it really is hard to do like one season in one sitting, because like there's so many good episodes with so many good little details here and there. Like we talked for 10 minutes about, even just in School Hard, about like how clever that setup is with the mayor, because it slipped in that early. And so, like, at this point, they're really looking forward at Buffy and what it can be. And so, like, that's why these are such, like, you get some that are, like, bad eggs, like, that, whatever. It's whatever. Or, like, some assembly acquired. It's whatever. But then you have ones...
those are the 2 worst episodes, I'd say. Bad eggs and some assembly required.
Thank you, Iceman. Appreciate you. Yeah, it's really, like, gets kind of dense, because it's so, like, they're like, okay, we're definitely making this show now, so let's, like, build out this world. And so that's what you have kind of going on forward. Because when you're in season 1, like we said, if you had ended at that last episode, it wouldn't have felt like you were getting gypped. It would have been a good conclusion to the show if they had not been greenlit for season 2. Whereas season 2, they're like, okay, we're just going to go full, like, pedal to the metal. We're going to start building this world out, so that way we can keep getting budget and we can keep getting green lights, you know?
Absolutely. And I know we've sort of really hammered onto this, but the cast grows with Spike and DRUSILLA, and with Jenny as well, and it's all for the better. You know, I don't feel like it's bloated.
Yeah.
Because you could have a show where you've got 7 cast members, and you're going, wait, who is who again? You know. And another show that does this incredibly well is Game of Thrones. You know, you have a huge cast of people, and it doesn't feel tremendously bloated.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, when certain people show up, I'm just excited for it. Whenever Oz shows up, I'm excited. Whenever Spike and Dru show up, it's great.
That's there. I forget that there really is so many good additions to the crew in this season, because like we acquired Jenny, then we have Spike and Dru coming in, and then we acquire Oz, and so it's like slowly adding these cool characters. And Oz, I mean, we've already talked. I'll talk again, obviously, about how great of a boyfriend Oz becomes, and like how cool of a part of the Scooby Gang he is, and he's like crucial, and he's very like level-headed, and just like he's Mr. Cool Guy, but he doesn't try to be. It's just his natural state of like, I'm chill. Like
there's a line as well that he says something like, someone says, "Oh, how are you always so cool?" And he says, "I show her cool as Syria, but like underneath I'm not." Or it's something like that. I think that might be from What's My Line again, or What's My Line.
Yeah.
But, he's just fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have much more to add for those for these episodes. I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed. I've finished season 2 already. And I'm sure I've said this already. I've just been blasting through.
Yeah.
Just been blasting through.
It's hard to not just want to like keep watching, keep watching, and keep watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
After season 1, it's such a bingeable show. Like, even season 1 is pretty binge worthy, but
interesting. Okay, just looking at this, like I'm looking at the beginning of season 3. I watched Anne, which what I loved about Anne, I know this is like well ahead of ourselves, but they had well, her name eventually becomes Anne, but I can't think of her name in it.
Lily, yeah.
Yeah. So she's something. She's got some goofy ass name in the episode with the guy from Roswell, and then she shows up in Anne, and then she shows up in Angel as Anne. So she keeps taking different names. So I always remember her as Anne because she plays a relatively. I think she's like three or so episodes of Angel, so she plays like a decent role. But what's interesting as well is like season 2 starts off with a belter, has a bad episode, and then picks up again. And this one, just looking at it, starts off with a belter, Dead Man's Party, not great episode. It's okay. And then next episode, Faith, Hope, and Trick. Oh my god. Eliza Dushku.
So exciting when Eliza comes in. I love it.
I've already got a boner. It's
That's literally like, it's so funny because like Faith is such a like she's such a distinctive character, and then she shows up and she's a scene chewer too. Like, I have not given her enough credit for that.
Big time.
Because she is her own vibe. She has her own lingo, which I fucking love. Like, I love when she says she's 5x5. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I believe you, whatever that means. Like, you kind of just get like a feeling for what it means, and so like, her lingo is so distinct that like when her and Buffy
like Aussie talk.
Yeah.
It's like when Kingsley, wherever the little fucker is, whenever he says something, you don't know what he means, but you like, you know that it's good or you know that it's bad. It's like whenever an Aussie's like, oh yeah, you fucking Greg Loud or whatever, you're like, I have no idea what that means, but I know you're insulting me.
Yeah.
It's similar with her. You're like, I've no idea what 5x5 means, but I know things are good.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and it's so, like, just shout out to, like, I don't even know if it was the writers or Eliza herself who was, like, but she really makes Faith her own character, and she does such a fucking good job of just, like, nailing her character beats, and like, you can tell this girl's had a rough life. She's been on the street. Like, there's so much you can gather from Faith just from her walking up. And then like, I watched the Homecoming episode, and she goes up to Scott, who had just dumped Buffy, which I forgot Scott even existed because he's such a like,
forgot about him.
He's such a
nobody.
Yeah. And so she goes up to him and says something about like, he's dancing with a girl, and she's like, oh, Scott, honey, the doctor says it's gonna clear up in a little bit. We just need to keep using the cream. And it's so good because she just does that for Buffy, like, out of spot. And Faith is such a, like, I'm just like, she's so unhinged. You cannot, like, even when she's a good guy, she's unhinged. So you're just like, she's such a loose cannon. You just don't know what she's gonna do, and I love it.
She's a party girl gone to like the 10th degree.
Yeah.
And what they do with her in Angel as well, like, what's so good about Eliza Dushku there is that she genuinely, like, her acting chops are just like absolutely on point, because when she does what she does, and she ends up an angel and she's broken, you just truly believe it through and through.
Yeah. It's
not hammy. It's so well done. And she's amongst my favorite characters of all time.
Yeah,
I think always will be.
She's such an interesting, another, like, it's so crazy because like this show has, and by this show I mean like this universe basically, because Angel like borrows from Buffy and Buffy borrows from Angel, so it's like, you know, they kind of coexist together.
Yeah, season 4 and season 1, there's a lot of crossovers, and I loved that. And to this day I love that. Like when there's like bits where in Buffy season four she'll go to phone Angel. It's like, oh, we need his help. She'll ring and then she'll hang up. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, actually, I don't want to do that. And then on Angel, he'll answer, hear like breathing, and then the phone will go dead, and you'll, what the hell's going on? He doesn't know who it is. And there's a lot of like these little subtle things where there's actual physical crossovers. Like Oz has to take that ring that gives him makes him humanish, I guess, or immune to. No, it's not. It's only for vampires and makes them immortal,
Yeah.
even from the sun. And like so, Oz shows up, and then Faith eventually shows up, and so does our old Wesley, and so on. So it like there's a lot of very clever crossovers.
And I
Very
think,
clever.
and I love like that both shows are really good at having really well written, well thought out characters that have a lot of depth to them. Even Cordelia, who is the most outwardly vapid, has a lot of depth to her. Especially
It's the character that grows the most is Cordelia.
Yeah.
By a country mile. I don't think anyone comes close to her growth.
Yeah. And
I mean, that's the only thing you could argue for poor Xander is that he starts off as like the meat, like you said, like a Ron Weasley, the meat shield, the the heart of the group, and by the end, that's still what he is. He doesn't really change.
yeah.
Spike goes through a lot of change. Angel goes through a lot of change. Buffy goes through a lot of change. Willow, physically and like the person that has the least amount is probably Xander.
Yeah.
That's
and,
him.
And it's so like it's so funny too cuz like it really is like I don't know, there's just some people who you're like that's just kind of who they are and they figure themselves out really early and they kind of just stay that way. And then you have people like Buffy who are constantly having to change because of situations that are going on. Like the situation with Angel really changes her a ton. Both like when he becomes Angelus and then when he comes back from the hell dimension, like all of that really changes her and does a lot for her. Whereas Xander doesn't have stuff like that in his life where like he's not stabbing his girlfriend into a hell dimension. Like he doesn't have to do any of that shit. So that's why he kind of stays like pretty level. Probably his biggest loss is his eye in season 7.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah, like, and it's such a like it happens like in season 7, so towards the end of the run of the whole series. So
yeah.
It's really easy to forget he becomes an eye patch wearing motherfucker, but he is. And so, yeah, like that season 7 really changes him probably the most, because of the loss of his eye, and then all these Slayers showing up, and Spike coming back into the mix, and he holds such a grudge against Spike. It's crazy. And poor Spike is like, no, I get I was a dickhead, guys, but I was also a demon, and I'm not a demon anymore. Like, calm down. And they're like, he could turn on us at any minute. And I was like, even when he was still like a straight up demon, he wasn't gonna turn on you guys like after a certain point.
No,
like, come on.
I mean, even season 2, he works together with Buffy and Co to bring down Angelus.
Yeah, and he's very much like it cracks me up because he's such a like man of his word, even though he is a demon. Like if Spike says it, he might not like mean it. Like there's that episode where he's like, oh, in the dump, and they're like, oh, we're looking for this guy, and he's like, you mean that guy? And then he's like, kick her ass. And then, like he doesn't actually mean that. He's just, but like if he says he's gonna do something, he's gonna do it. And then when Buffy disappears and dies at the end of what is it, season 4, and season 5 starts, he is very much like, you're Buffy's little sister and I'm gonna protect you because that's what she would want, Dawn. And so I'm like, from that point onward, there's no way that Spike's gonna betray you. Like, shut up.
Like he set up his character or his motives so well at that point that it seems unlikely to change.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll.
I was gonna say, do we want to try to tackle all the way to Ted?
Yes, let's attempt to tackle all the way to Ted.
Okay.
There's a lot going on. I mean, the problem is that today we've had 4 mostly okay episodes. Nothing other than School Hard. we've now got 5 incredible episodes, so this might be a 2-3 hour wittering on. And What's My Line 1 and 2 are amongst my favorites.
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Kendra the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah. Oh, when she well, I don't want to spoil it too much because we're flittering so often up and down, but when she dies later on, it's kind of bittersweet because she's not a great actress. Well, maybe she is, but like Kendra's played so goofy.
Yeah.
But you do feel bad for her because it's just like how it happens is so quick, and spoiler alert, Dru gets a Slayer.
Bags herself a Slayer. Well, and I love Spike's reaction. Oh, she bagged it. Good for her. And he's oh wait, that was your friend. My bad. Kind of a thing. Like, oh shit, forgot who I was talking to. But the other thing with Kendra is like, I feel bad the way she goes out because like we don't have a ton of time with Kendra. And then what we do know of her though is her life was being a Slayer even really before she was activated as a Slayer. Yeah, so
she had a rough life.
Yeah.
Same. I mean, maybe it's like a prerequisite for being a Slayer. They've all sort of had it kind of rough.
Yeah.
But it's like I think it's Joe Rogan who has said that the most interesting people have had like these like really difficult upbringings or these like strange lives. You know when you look at these famous people or people have they've gone through shit, and that's made them like interesting or made them the way they are.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way to look at it. It's like I've not had the most I've never had like major dramas, so maybe that's why I'm a boring fucker. So
I disagree.
I don't know, like maybe there's something to it.
Well, and I think too, like for a hero, you're gonna go through some shit. So I think like I think it's kind of like they talk about in The Shining how like that's kind of how you get that psychic ability is you've gone through some shit. And so
yeah,
I think a little bit that is kind of like a prerequisite to being a Slayer is you have to go through some shit and overcome it in order to be available as a Slayer, because there we learn later on in season 7 there's all these potential Slayers, and so what activates them as a potential Slayer and then what ends up making them a Slayer, I think it's a lot of these girls have gone through some shit. And so
I think we've tapped into something really important, and the reason why a lot of shows or superheroes at the moment, or whatever it might be, don't work is because a lot of them have this unearned valor. You just have to believe, and this is like a common trope with Hollywood films and shows at the moment. You just have to believe that girl is strong or perfect in every way, and that, like the whole Mary Sue thing, and look at like the Star Wars. It's completely unearned. You just have to believe that Rey, is it, whatever her name was?
Yeah.
Star Wars. She's just perfect. You just got to accept it. Whereas when you see someone like Buffy, she goes through shit. She goes pushed through the mill. She's in the fight, and you see her grow, and you see her earn that valor, and you know that she's a badass. Whereas, someone like whatever her name is, Ridley, is it? Something, whatever. The actress or whatever.
Yeah.
You just have to accept that she's a badass from the beginning. And I've noticed a lot of these shows, they'll write, like there'll be a line where the protagonist will say something like, "Well, I guess my biggest weakness is that I care too much, or I'm too strong, or whatever." And you're like, "Oh, fuck off! You don't tell me that you care too much. That's shit writing. What you do is you have it build up slowly where you go, well, that character just cares so much that they put their life on the line, and then by the end of the season or the end of the movie, that's what you believe. You don't fucking have the protagonist turn to the camera and go, well, I guess I just care too much. It's this like I think that's what's going to happen with the new Buffy show. That's going to make it so bad is that you just have to accept that this new Slayer or whatever it's going to be is better and stronger and more perfecter than Buffy ever was. Why? Because it's 2024 and you just gotta fucking accept it. And it will be unearned. Or just be like, yep, she's better. Why? Because 2024, mate.
Yeah, well, and I think too,
unearned valor.
You've definitely tapped into, like, we are so bad these days at telling, not showing. You know, they say when you're writing a book or you're writing a movie, show it, don't say it. And so that's how you know something is good writing. Like, you know, you've got the first Captain America movie where Steve Rogers is getting his ass kicked. They throw a fake grenade out in the middle of training and he jumps on it, you know? And so you see he is a selfless person. He understands the value of everybody else's lives, and he really is a heroic human being, and that's why he's chosen for... the superhero serum.
He earns the valor.
Yeah.
He earns that valor. He earns the right to be Captain America. He earned that right. And that's what's lost nowadays. You just have whoever it is, the protagonist is, I am perfect. Why am I perfect? Because I say I'm perfect. And that's it. You just have to fucking accept it. And then the problem is that you can't, I can't suspend disbelief at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buffy's earned it. Yeah, it's a 16-year-old girl doing backflips and all that, but she's earned it.
Yeah.
You've spent however many seasons or episodes going, cool, I understand her, I understand her motives, I understand her strengths, I understand her weaknesses. And that's the other problem, is they don't give them any weaknesses.
Yeah.
They just, well, I'm just fucking perfect. Captain Marvel, whatever her name is. Brie Larson. She's just fucking perfect. Why? Because she is. Just accept it. She's the strongest and the bestest. Totally unearned, just thrown in. There she is. She's perfect.
Well, and I think too, like, it's so interesting because then you have like Wanda and WandaVision, and that's such a juxtaposition to what they did with Captain Marvel, where it's like Wanda has a weakness. Wanda is a broken person. Wanda has had a rough life. She longs for this like family that she can never have because that's not her reality, and that's why people think WandaVision, the show, is so brilliant, is because it goes through and it shows that, right? Like, I've never seen the show, but I've seen clips from the show, and so you can see that. And so it's very like the clips I've seen, I'm like, man, that's kind of heartbreaking. And so I think
she does great. She's like super evil though. Like, what she's doing is mega evil. I've not watched the show, but like you said, I've seen clips. From what I understand, she's like holding people hostage.
Yeah,
like, it's really evil what she's doing. So and this is the other problem. Like, you know, morality is so confused at the moment, where people go, I mean, take like the Tesla shit that's going on at the moment. Like, people's morality is so fucking cooked that they think it's acceptable to go to some random person. They have no idea what this person's been through. That person could be a diehard blue Democrat their entire fucking life, just happened to buy a Tesla, and now you're going around keying fucking swastikas into it. Swastikas?
Yeah.
Into it. Like, and you're justifying that. Like, morality is so fucked, and it shows it comes up in so many shows where you're like, oh, and that person's a baddie. Like, that is a bad person, but they sold as a good person, and it keeps happening. And again, it's similar to this unearned valor thing, where, you know, you just have to accept that I am a good person. Like, really? Are you? Like, I don't think you are.
Well,
I think you might be a bit of a shit.
And I think too, like, in the show, the WandaVision show, like, they confront that with her, and she has to let them go, basically. So, like, it does eventually come around to, like, no, Wanda understands what she's doing is evil. She stops doing it, you know, da-da-da. But then I think too, like, it's like, you touch...
Olsen as well, isn't it?
It's what?
It's an Olsen, the witch lady.
Is it?
One of the... I think
you might be right. Hang on, wait. WandaVision cast.
One of the Olsens, I think.
Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so, like, I was, you touched on this point where it's like people's morality is so cooked, and then we have like these bad guys who, like, you feel for them, and like, I'm all for bad guys who are charming, don't get me wrong. Like, Scar the Lion is my absolute favorite Disney character. Like, you want to pull together all the Disney characters that have ever been, Scar is my favorite, and it's because he is so evil, and he's so focused on his goal that he doesn't give a fuck about the rest of it, and so you don't feel bad when he gets thrown to the hyenas. And so, like, I've always loved Scar because I thought he was so cool and so suave, and he was just so, like, I'm committed to this regardless of what I have to do to get there. And so and I kind of understood, like, he was the smaller lion, he just kind of got the short end of the stick basically at birth. And so when they came out with the Mufasa movie, I was like, fuck that, absolutely not, I will never watch that movie, fuck that movie. And it's because, like, I'm like, I don't need to know the backstory, I don't need to know how sad it was for Scar. You kind of understood that when you watched the original cartoon.
Sure.
You just kind of understood he was smaller than Mufasa, he's not as good as Mufasa, like, he's hanging out with the hyenas, he's conniving, so Mufasa is this very virtuous leader who's talking about the circle of life, then you have Scar who's hiding in the shadows and doing all this shady shit. So, like, you knew, like, you didn't need the rest of the information. Like, Mufasa, to me, is the most pointless fucking movie ever made.
That's like what we've mentioned before, where, like, you know, Hollywood is just so devoid of ideas, and they also...
What up, Josephine?
They have this problem where they have to take the baddie and give them, like, a backstory to why they're actually good. And that seems to be, like, a really common thing, like Maleficent and so on. It's like, well, what you don't understand is that she's bad, but she's not really that bad. She's actually good. She's misunderstood, and unfortunately, that's become like a big trope. It's just like the baddie is misunderstood, is misunderstood. Sometimes you just need someone to be the bad guy. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, the heel. They are the bad guy. As much as I want to stay. The wife is texting me.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have to wrap it up there. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
But we'll pick it up in a week's time. I think we're gonna try and hit 5 of some of the best episodes of season 2. It's gonna be arguably the most interesting, but also there's gonna be quite a bit of time between me having watched it and us talking about it. So I need to kind of slow down how much I'm watching.
I know, it's like so hard because I just want to, like, pedal to the metal through it, and then I'm like, okay, but you're gonna forget all this shit, so maybe, like, slow down.
Yeah, well, this is also why we need to sort of talk about more chunks, or, like, you know, half of a season or something like that, because I am lasting through it.
Yeah.
And things not being forgotten. But thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who's sitting there. Thank you.
Thank you, Logic. Thank you.
I thank you, Hannah. As always, it's so much fun. It really is.
Yeah.
Oh, well, till next week, I guess.
All right, have a good one. Stay safe, my friend.
Take care. Cheers.
And thank you guys very much for watching. Appreciate you. Appreciate you guys lurking in the chat. Appreciate you guys lurking not in the chat, just lurking, watching the video. As Logic said, we'll be doing this again next week. Probably start around noon. We try to always start around noon Central Time, so be here on Rumble for the live, and then you can always just watch the recording later if you miss it. But thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Josephine. Thank you, Galaxy. Thank you, Iceman. Appreciate you guys a lot. Hope you guys have a lovely rest of your week.